Hey everybody, Hatcher here with gaming news, reviews, and tips, GNRT, and today we're in Age of Empires 4 taking on hard AI. Now, I didn't have too much trouble with easy and intermediate levels of difficulty with AI, but I gotta be honest, hard AI gave me a little bit of trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the game here for hard AI. I've primarily been playing as the French against the English just for consistency and trying to win on all three modes, easy, intermediate, hard, and then eventually hardest, with a military victory by wiping out the different landmarks, then obtaining a wonders victory, and finally trying to obtain a victory with getting all of the religious sites. With the French, I found really important to prioritize food and gold, especially when you're on a non-naval map. And the reason that we need both food and gold is because we want to produce cavalry, and we also want to get to age 2 really fast. And so what I tend to do is assign all of my initial workers to collecting food, and then start to produce all of my other workers as we're going along. But again, I'm going to be prioritizing food as the #1 resource, and then secondly, building up a mining area, and then starting to get some gold and some gold reserves. All the while, building houses as needed to ensure that I can continuously be producing workers and eventually continuously producing military, so that I always have that continuous production. Essentially what you want to do is you want to overwhelm your opponent when it comes to the hard AI, and so you need to be producing units faster than they are. And one of the things that I found is I just wasn't producing enough workers. So whenever you can, you should be producing a worker, trying to get them on board. So again, our goal here is simply to get to age 2 as fast as possible. So I don't bother building a barracks. I go straight for age 2, so producing workers, having them collect food, having my scout go out, collect sheep, bring them back to the town, drop them off. The scout's out there looking around also for where the opposition is, so that I know where their settlement is when I'm ready to go in and attack. As I'm getting close to being ready to build age 2, or my cavalry station, I do start to collect a little bit of wood. So I'll build up a lumber mill and then just assign 1 or 2 workers to collect some wood as needed. And as I said, making sure that my scout is out there searching around for my opponent, but also collecting some sheep. So this whole time, just producing workers as soon as they become available, and producing as many workers as I can, having them pre-assigned to go out, and in this case they're going to be going to slaughter sheep and collect food. I can pull them away as needed and send them over to get more mining resources, or as I shift into age 2, get more lumber, because wood is going to become much more important as we enter age 2, because I want to build an archery area as well as the blacksmith station. And I'm going to want to produce archers, all of which require wood. So in the initial stage, it's really just a race to age 2, and so that's going to mean prioritizing food and gold. I would say it's almost a 2-to-1 ratio for food over gold. Then I'm going to build the School of Cavalry, and usually what I do is I grab my my miners, the ones that are on gold, and have them build up the cavalry unit. And then I keep the workers that are on food, collecting food. That allows me to produce even more workers. And then I start sending them over to lumber, and again, just building houses as needed. So, again, early game, very early game, food and gold, and then transitioning into wood. But this constant production, especially as you're building the School of Cavalry, having the constant food intake means that you continue to produce workers. Those workers can go out and be assigned to, either collect food, help build, or collect more wood. So you can see here I'm just shifting some workers over. I've gotten quite a few on food, so I'm just moving them over to collect some wood, start to build up my wood resources, because as soon as the School of Cavalry is built, not only am I going to want to be producing Royal Knights, but I'll also eventually want to be building archery locations, the blacksmith, and I'll be wanting to produce archers, and that all requires wood. And so, you know, starting to collect some wood there. As well as sending your scout out now that he's, you know, surveyed the, you know, the area close and picked up all the sheep close to where I am. Just having him look around and try and contact and find where the opposing forces are. So you can see here he's come into contact with them. I'm going to move him out of range so that he doesn't die, but I can keep an eye on them here. And then the School of Cavalry is done. And this allows us to produce one of our strongest units, especially in the early game. That allows us to produce Royal Knights. So when I've gone after the hard AI, when I'm trying to defeat them with a military victory, my main units are the Royal Knights and my archers, and then getting that blacksmith area set up and allowing siege units to be produced is important as well. And so I'll research that pretty early on. That way my archers will be able to build the battering ram. But at this point, just trying to build up my military and produce Royal Knights, and producing the archery range so that I'll be able to produce my archers. Anytime I don't have enough resources to produce a Royal Knight and queue up a Royal Knight, then I'm going to be producing a worker, okay? And you can see constant worker production is also important. One of the mistakes I was making early on is I wasn't producing workers continuously, and you really, basically, you need continuous worker production, always spitting new workers out. And just because, you know, you can't make a Royal Knight, or maybe you can't make an archer, you can always make a worker. So go ahead and make sure you're keeping them busy and you're always adding to your workforce. But once I'm into Age 2 and I've got the School of Cavalry built and I'm working on some Royal Knights, then I'll start to also build up my archery units and produce some archers and get their forces available too. I find that they're a good combination because the Royal Knights are great against melee and also really good against opposing archers, so I can use them there. But I need the archers for a couple of reasons. Number one, if they produce, especially the English, if they produce spearmen, then I need the archers to help take them down. As well, I can use the archers to build the battering ram. And so now you can see I've just started here on the blacksmith shop, and that'll allow me to research siege weapons. So essentially, to kind of break it down into a nutshell here, you know, trying to get to Age 2 as fast as possible. So in early game, you know, you just focusing strictly on workers and assigning them primarily to gold and to food collection, and building those reserves up until you can get to Age 2. When you get to Age 2, then building the School of Cavalry and starting to produce your Royal Knights, and then, you know, starting to increase your wood production, and that allows you to build not only the blacksmith shop, but the archery range, and to build archers. And then, you know, just building up your military as much as possible. And so anytime I can, I'm producing a Royal Knight. Almost anytime I can, I'm producing an archer, unless I'm trying to just save up and get to the 150 wood that it costs in order to build the blacksmith shop, or maybe I'm trying to save up enough wood in order to build the battering ram. Then you're going to get a nice force together. So right now, you know, this is a pretty good force here where, with the Royal Knights and with the archers. I've had quite a few times where the English have mounted an attack at this point. So you need to be able to repel them and not lose too many units at this point. And so in this situation, they haven't attacked yet, so I'm just going to continue to build my force and research siege weapons and build up my military, as well as continuing to build up my my workforce so that I can continue my resource production. And then once I've got you know, siege weapons researched, then I'll be able to build the battering ram, and then I can really go, you know, on the attack, right? And then that's when things are really going to shift. Now here, I just want to also make sure that I've got constant production. So, you know, I started with the sheep, and then I eventually ran out of sheep, so I had to move my food workers over to these bushes. They're almost done on the bushes, so I'm just going to shift them over, and then they can go after the deer. I think one of the mistakes that I was making early on is I would go after the deer right away, and then it made it really easy pickings for the English to come and just wipe out my workers that were unprotected. So I try and keep them fairly close, if at all possible, but and instead focusing on producing as many workers as I can and keeping them busy and not getting distracted. One of the other problems that I had is I would start to increase my military and then I would forget about producing workers, thinking I didn't have enough resources, and that's simply not the case. Keep producing workers whenever you can, and build up that workforce. You know, you can see right now I've got, well, what, 33 workers on the go here, and I'm just going to shift them over. You know, there's only that one bush left at this mill, so I'm going to shift them over and they can go hunting. And I'm getting pretty close here. You know, I'm going to have my siege weaponry ready to go, and then I'm just going to need enough wood so that I can go ahead and start to build a battering ram. And at that point, if I've been attacked, then hopefully I've been able to repel them and wipe out their force, their attacking force, and then replenish my forces. Meanwhile, if they haven't attacked, which in this case they haven't attacked here yet, I'm going to go on the offensive. I'm going to try and put them on their heels. So I'll be going in with pretty much everything I've got currently made, sending them in to where my scout is, and you know, trying to launch an attack on their forces, putting them on their heels, and bringing the fight to them. The other thing that I do is I do research the regeneration ability for the Royal Knights. That way when they're at a combat, they are going to be gaining their health back. So moving my forces out now, but again, continuing to produce workers, continuing to produce archery units, continuing to produce my Royal Knights. At this point, I'm still going to keep them close to home. I'm not going to send them all the way out to the battlefield, because if the English have mounted an attack against me, I want to be producing forces that can try and repel them. And so I'm just going to leave any newly produced military units here at my home base. Meanwhile, managing my workers, making sure that they're still producing things effectively, and then balancing them out. You know, if I've got too many on wood, or too few on wood, then I'm going to switch them out there. Same thing with food, same thing with gold. So I'm going to move in for my attack here, and you know, I've got the one battering ram, and I'm just trying to save up enough wood so that I can get a second battering ram in the very, you know, short to medium term. But meanwhile, I'm going to move in on the attack. And I'm going to have to micromanage these guys a little bit, right? Like when as soon as I see what's coming up, I'm just going to send in my cavalry here so that they can see what kind of units are going to attack. Oh, and lo and behold, there's some spearmen. While I got to avoid the spearmen with my Royal Knights, I'm going to instead circle them around and attack the spearmen. So they can go after the spearmen. Meanwhile, my archers are trying to take care of the, the Royal Knights are going to go after the archers and wipe them out. Meanwhile, my archers are going to go after their melee dudes and try and take them out. Meanwhile, now that I know that they're not attacking me because their military was there, I'm going to go ahead and send the rest of my troops over this way. So I've got my Royal Knights, I've got my archers. I'm going to start to move my battering ram in. You know, if they've got heavy infantry, then I'm going to go ahead and use my Royal Knights against them. If they've got spearmen, I'm going to pull my Royal Knights back and instead use my archers to take out their spearmen. And then I'll send my battering ram in, focusing on those high-value targets whenever I can. So I've got them sent in here on one of their military-producing units. I think that's one of the areas that they're producing spearmen from. And now, since I'm actually moving right in on the attack, and they're not attacking me, I'm moving all of the units I've produced over, and also sending any newly produced military units this way as well. So you can see the battering ram took care of that first landmark. I'm just going to go and start to mop up here a little bit now, continue on the attack. I'm going to be a little bit cautious with my Royal Knights and make sure that they're not getting too low on health, because they're really important to keep around, especially if there's more spearmen that are produced. They're going to get wiped out really quickly. So I'll go ahead and back them off and let the battering ram do its job. and you know, keep expanding my population, keep making sure that I'm producing more workers, this whole time, continuous worker production, sending them to work, and sending my military out to the front lines. And then I'm going to want to get another battering ram built, so that I can go ahead and make sure that I'm decimating their landmarks as quickly as possible. And so we've got our battering ram working here against one of their landmarks, and then I'm going to have my archers go ahead and build up another battering ram, and this will take care of them more effectively. My Royal Knights have healed up, and they haven't mounted a counterattack yet, so I'm going to go ahead and send them in. You know, they're okay against these. All of my Royal Knights will usually be able to, you know, wipe out that one horseman that's using again. And then once my archers have the battering ram built up, I'll go ahead and send that in to go ahead and decimate. So, you know, again, probably some of the big things that I was missing out on is just the constant worker production. You know, I was trying to be defensive for a while, so I would build up defensive walls, and I was getting into these protracted battles against the English where, you know, I could hold them off, but they would eventually wipe me out and eventually walk through my walls. But I would have these hour-long battles and eventually end up losing. And really, I wanted to get that achievement where I can get the new monument in, you know, in my town with the crossbowmen and the police. And so this was a good way to do this. Just go out on the attack and wipe them out right away. So you can see here, we've wiped out their town center now. We've wiped out their military production unit building. And now we're going to go ahead and go after their last landmark. And I'm going to continue to send out my archers, continue to build workmen. Workers this whole time. These guys, you know, they ran out of work to do there, so I'll just send them over and have them continue to collect food. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead and move in on this other landmark. I've had the battering rams along now moving with the Royal Knights. Pretty much their entire military is gone. They can't produce any more military units, or at least very few, and the workers so again, you know, focusing on a few important things. Make sure that you're constantly producing workers. Try and get to H2 as fast as possible. So the first thing you want to focus on is food and gold. And then as you enter into H2, switching to wood production. And then opening up your school of cavalry, producing Royal Knights. Whenever you can't produce a knight, continue to produce workers. When you get enough wood, go ahead and build the archery range and the blacksmith shop. Research siege engineering so that you'll be able to produce the battering ram. And then once you've got enough units to go ahead and launch your attack, go ahead and move in with your archers, providing support against their spearmen, using your Royal Knights to decimate either their archers or their melee units. And then you've got your battering rams to take out their hard positions, whether it be the town or other buildings there. Hope this helped. I was happy to get my achievement and move forward there against the hard AI, and I've been enjoying playing the French. So if you found this helpful, please give me a like or subscribe, and we'll see you in game.